Hello and welcome to Gainsborough Dolphins' brand new podcast.
The Phin podcast, brought to you by Gainsborough Dolphins Swimming Club, all striving to achieve our swimming potential. Episode 1, Part 2, The Road to Nationals, with your hosts, Ben Ambrose and Lydia Smith, joined by special guest, Amelia Osborne.
Welcome back to the Phin podcast. Thank you to everyone who's listened to part 1 of the very first episode. In the first episode, if you didn't catch it, we discussed early competitive swimming and the silly stories to go with it. The second part of today's episode is going to look at preparation for nationals. Fortunately enough, we have two people in the studio who have made nationals, and no, it's not me. Both Amelia and Lydia have competed at nationals, and today we are going to talk about their experiences and the preparation it took to get there. So one big question that is floated around the sports world is whether it is hard work or natural talent that makes the best kind of athlete. What do you feel yourself it comes down to? Is it hard work or natural talent?
For me, it's definitely hard work. There are plenty of natural talents out there, but without extreme hard work, they will never become the best athlete that they can. It sort of, when you sort of watching it in swimming, there'll be some really, really naturally talented little swimmers, but they don't try because of that. And then as they get older, the people who are working really, really, really hard start to overtake them. So even though they are naturally talented, it does take a lot of hard work. That's not to say people who don't get it straight away aren't going to become a really amazing athlete, because for me, when I was little, I was never sort of up there medaling when I was 9-10 years old, so it definitely took a lot of hard work for me.
I definitely agree with Lydia. It's more hard work than it is natural talent, but I think they go hand in hand at some points. So natural talent will only ever get you so far. You need to put the work in to make sure you sustain the places you're in and continue to pursue your swimming career to medal at the different competitions and to create that national level.
So, for example, let's think about Michael Phelps for a minute here, the most crowned, most gold medalist in Olympics. Do you think a swimmer at that standard, that quality, comes down to having hard work, or do you think he's an example of natural talent?
Definitely think that's hard work. You look at the training plan that he was given and how many hours he'd spend in the pool and out of the pool trying to better himself as an athlete. It's definitely all down to hard work for him, I think.
I completely agree with Amelia there. Someone who just has natural talent wouldn't make it that far and be able to go and do the things that he did. He was in and out of the pool training for several hours a day. He had specific diet plans, he had specific training plans, and it definitely took a lot of hard work. I've listened to one of the interviews that he did, and all he talked about was working hard.
So Lydia, as a coach, do you prefer to see a swimmer working hard or thinking that they just have the natural talent?
For me, definitely when I see someone working hard, because even if they do have or think they have natural talent, they're not actually going to progress as they should without working hard.
And talking of hard work, we know it takes a lot of dedication to make it to the national championships, and actually very few swimmers do make it. Do you feel the qualifying for national championships comes down to being naturally talented, or down to someone who is willing to put the time and the effort into the training process?
I definitely think it's down to the working hard and the commitment and dedication that they've put into it to play, because it takes a lot of time. There's multiple hours spent in the pool in a day. I swim at the minute 4.5 hours in the pool a day, and that's not including anything outside of the pool like gym work or anything like that. So it's definitely all down to hard work.
And actually it's a case of the coaches and also parents putting in their commitment as well. Doesn't just come down to the swimmer, does it, Lydia?
No, definitely not. When I was swimming, there was lots and lots of people who would volunteer stand on the poolside, giving you the best training they could, giving you advice, making it sort of so that you could go and do that, and you could train, and you could go to open meets, you could go to galas. So definitely the ones that are putting in all their time and effort into the training process, that's the only way to go.
So Amelia, you've kind of iced over the first part of my next question, actually. So you kind of said that you did 4.5 hours training a day. How many training sessions do you do a week currently?
So at the moment, I swim every day apart from a Sunday, and I do doubles on a Monday and a Wednesday.
So is there anything that you had to do outside of the pool to make you more prepared for the next competition that you're going to do?
Definitely dietary requirements. So unfortunately for the younger swimmers, McDonald's doesn't help, along with other takeaways and KFCs. It's okay occasionally, but before a competition I probably would suggest to steer clear. So there's dietary requirements. I have a gym plan I've got to follow. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
It's fantastic. What about you, Lydia? Did you, when you were training to be at Nationals, how many training sessions did you do a week, and was there anything you did outside?
So everyone is always really, really surprised when I say this, but leading up to qualifying for Nationals, I only actually swam 3 times a week, but this was due to another commitment. I was also doing gymnastics 4-5 times a week as well, and I would also play football on the weekends. So I had a lot of other commitments and a lot of other sporting journeys that I was on as well, which really helped because my gymnastics gave me a lot of strength, which really helped in the pool. Obviously, once I had qualified for Nationals, I then started to swim a lot more, but leading up to it, I swam 3 times a week, but when I swam those 3 times a week, it had to be everything I had.
How does it actually feel to be in that pool that many times a week? Do you go through any stages of wanting to give up?
I think it's a really tough mental game, and honestly, that you can put all the hard work in you want, but if you're not mentally ready and prepared to be in the pool and to be flexing off 15 minutes before a session and stretching off afterwards, and you're not willing to sacrifice the takeaways and, putting yourself out there, it's going to be tough to go to training and do all those hours of exercise without wanting to be, I want to be back in my bed. Like, obviously, 5 o'clock in the morning, everybody wants to be in bed asleep, but you have to take that step to then, better yourself as an athlete and as a person, to then be like, I can beat this person because I know I've done this.
So for me, leading up to qualifying for Nationals, that was sort of my one goal. I really wanted to do it, and I was sort of just thinking, if I do more than everyone else, I've got much of a better chance. So I sort of wanted to be there. I wanted to go to swimming. I would get up before school. Even if it was sometimes just coming here and doing my own swimming session, I would get up before school. I would go after school. It's definitely very tough. And at times you do sort of question, is it worth it? But obviously for me, I did all that hard work and it did pay off.
Fantastic. And what mental strength do you have to build to be tough as a swimmer? I mean, we spoke about in the last episode about disqualifications and examples that you gave us. So what in your head did you do to make yourself mentally stronger?
You just have to learn from the mistakes you make. So disqualifications, you learn from them, you don't repeat them. I think realistically, being mentally strong is you've got to want it. If you don't want it, you're not going to be there mentally. You have to want it.
Definitely agree with Amelia there. You've got to want to do it. As long as you want to do it and you're willing to put in all that effort. Mentally, you do go through a lot, especially through a long journey, dealing with injuries, maybe bad racing day, bad training, but going through that, it does only make you stronger. You learn from it, sort of, it helps you, you don't do it again.
So it's a kind of, in a sense, hard work really does pay off.
Yeah, definitely.
So before we started this episode, I kind of spent a bit of time researching ideas of what it takes to be mentally strong. and to train as an athlete. So I wonder whether you did these things or whether you would even suggest people do these. So the first one is kind of setting yourself small, short-term goals.
I did this, so I gave myself a 3-month, a 6-month and a 12-month plan, and for each of those I wrote down 3 goals I wanted to hit within that time period, and my dad was really supportive. He was the one that told me about this, and I think it really helped with letting me plan how I wanted to take my swimming career.
So I sort of did this and sort of didn't at the same time. When we was like sort of going through like the qualifying periods of like counties, Midlands, nationals, I would sort of look at the times that I was doing for specific races, and I would sort of think, right, well, I'm currently doing, say, a 1.8. I want to try and get that down to a 1.6 by the time that it comes around to qualifying time. But I didn't necessarily sort of do like Amelia did in the 3, 6 and 12.
Fantastic. What about this other one for you? So positive thoughts. So kind of visualising how you would feel after a good performance.
Definitely have to think positively at galas. Like, if you have a bad race but you've got other races afterwards, you can't focus and dwell on it. You've got to move on and like take it as it comes. So you can't, I think as long as you prepare and you've worked hard for this gala, you will do well. It will all pay off. You just have to trust the process, that the coach knows what he's doing, and you just have to listen to them.
I definitely agree with Amelia there. Everyone has bad races, everyone has bad days. You're not always going to PB, you're not always going to swim as well as you wanted to, and I definitely think it's how you deal with that. I know sometimes I would have a bad race, and especially when I was younger, I would let it affect the rest of the day, and I would then, because of that, not swim as well as I could have in the rest of the races. As I sort of got older, it definitely improved, and I definitely learned from that. And what I would do a lot of the time is, when I was round waiting to race, I would visualise not how I would sort of feel with a good performance, but how my race was going to go, what I'd done in training, and sort of how the race was going to go.
Fantastic. So it was kind of a big question that was passed on from our head coach, Mark Smith. How did you cope with losing? In a sense, not losing the race, but maybe losing the ability of having a good swim. How did you cope after a bad swim?
I think we all just need to learn from how we train and how we race. So if I have a bad swim, I'll get out, I'll go do a swim down, and then I'll go speak to my coach, probably get some few feedback pointers, explain how I felt in the water, whether I had a good catch, whether it felt like I was, on time, or whether from the start I was going slower. And you just take it from there, and then you go back to training and you just work at where you think you fell off the bandwagon.
Being completely truthful, I didn't take losing very well. I grew up with three brothers. We were always very competitive, and I was the child that hated losing. More in a sense, when I had a bad swim, that I would be really annoyed with myself, especially if I knew that I could do better, or I could have I finished the race and I knew that I'd done something wrong. Especially sort of in the big galas at nationals on my 100 backstroke. I finished the race and I knew my finish was wrong, which cost me the gold medal. And there is a video on YouTube and you can see me sort of splashing in the water. But again, like Amelia said, it's sort of how you go about that. I knew what I'd done wrong, so I went back into training and I worked on that and improved in the next race.
Was it just down to a bad swim? Was it down to just having a bad day, or was it down to maybe your build-up and your attitude to training?
I think it depends. Sometimes we just have bad days. There's if you're tired, your attitude might change. You might not want to be there. You're lethargic. But I'd never say or blame it on the training, because the coach has a plan. You just have to believe in them like they believe in you. And you've got to trust what they're doing, because they want what's best for you and they want to get you as far as you can go. So I definitely think it depends on just the day and how you're feeling within yourself.
Sometimes you do just have a bad day. You do just have a bad swim. If you sort of look at like the top end of swimming, not all of them PB every time. They're not completely happy in the interviews with their swim. They've obviously been training lots and lots for this, and sometimes you just don't have a good day.
So what was the hardest training session that you went through when training for nationals, and kind of how did you feel afterwards?
I think the hardest one we did was probably an 8K session, and it was basically VO2 and threshold. It was absolutely horrible. My whole body, I was ready to sleep. I had food, I stretched off, I went back, had dinner, and I just slept. I just felt awful.
So for me, all of them were very, very painful, so I try my hardest to forget them. The only one I actually ever remember was 3 hours. It was a 3-hour session, and most of it was quick turnaround training. I know a lot of you currently moan about doing this, but trust me, it really does work.
Fantastic. So it's race day. You've qualified. Did you have any superstitions towards a race? Come on, you've got to be honest here.
This might sort of go against what Amelia said earlier on in the podcast. But for me, before every gala, I would have a McDonald's breakfast. It wasn't unhealthy. I did only have a porridge, but it was the go into McDonald's before a competition. I just had to do it.
I had to have apple juice before I'd arrived at Pons Forge all the time. It had to be a carton of apple juice.
Two completely different things there. Two completely different things. Lydia, do you think you could give us an insight on what kind of happens on a race day? So what do you need to do as a swimmer when you arrive at the pool?
So 9 times out of 10, the first thing, you sort of like meet your coach, just let them know you're there. Often you'll sort of like sit and have a bit of a chit chat before you all sort of like disperse and go get ready for the day with your team. Especially at Pons Forge, we all used to gather around in the morning having breakfast and whatnot. And then typically you sort of go down, you get changed, you get ready for the warm-up on poolside. And then obviously it leads into sort of the day of racing, your warm-up, your races, your cool-downs.
So is there any equipment that you would recommend having as a swimmer?
I take my fins and kickboard to a competition for my cool-down because we have a set cool-down that we're supposed to do, and it involves kick, and that just releases the lactic acid in your legs basically and makes you feel a bit more like relaxed and recovered for your next event. So I'd personally suggest fins for the cool-down pool. You can't wear them in the warm-up pool though because of the timing boards.
I would, not necessarily just for competing, but training in general. All of the equipment that is sort of suggested for you to have. So if a coach says to you, like fins or anything like that, it's to help you and better you. So I definitely always think that using the equipment does help.
I think for you, Lydia, it's hand paddles. I think we all agree you love a good hand paddle.
My arms are very weak, so
I think
definitely.
I think a TheraBand's really good as well for flexing off and stretching off after and before you race.
So at the start of every competition, you spoke about it there. You perform a land warm-up. How important is that land warm-up to start off the day correctly?
It's very important. You need to make sure that you've raised your heart rate and you're mobilising your whole body. If you're not, then you're going to get in the water, you're going to be cold, you've not actually, like, your body's going to be all lethargic. You need to like land warm up. You need to do it.
Warming up is definitely very important. For me, a couple of the older swimmers will have been around when I was sort of competing, and they would all see me doing a massive warm-up. I'd be jumping about, I'd be skipping, I'd be stretching off. It comes with swimming and gymnastics as well, but I always had to warm up. I had to feel warm, I had to feel ready, and it really does improve your racing.
Fantastic. So was there a favourite exercise for you both that you always performed on a race day?
I would always do skipping. Sometimes it's hard if there's not much space on poolside. Sometimes I would take myself outside and do it. I just loved skipping for some reason, bit of a weird one, but it was something that raised my heart rate, so I enjoyed it. It was not like a forced warm-up, it was something that I wanted to do.
I agree with Lydia. I really enjoyed skipping or the glute bridges. I think they definitely activate your fast twitch fibre muscles, you're bouncy, you feel warm, you're ready to get going.
Was there an exercise that you personally hated being on your warm-up?
Not necessarily. With me sort of doing gymnastics and whatnot, I sort of was used to doing all the exercises, and I knew that a warm-up was really important in order to race, so I wasn't really bothered by doing the exercises for warm-up.
Yeah, on a race day, I wouldn't personally do anything I was uncomfortable with or I didn't like, just because I didn't want it to affect my mood and my headspace. But overall, if I was in the gym and someone told me to do something like burpees, as like Ben said earlier, or running, I tell them no.
So it's race day. You've done all your training. You've got yourself prepped. You've done your land warm up. How do you feel inside your head? What's kind of going through your head just as you're about to race?
For me, it's sort of like visualising my race. So I didn't tend to like chat to the other people that were in my heat or anything like that. I was sort of like just focused in the zone, going through in my head what I was going to do, how I was going to swim it. I'd obviously been talking to the coaches beforehand. They'd obviously told me how to swim a race, and that was all that was in my head until I got onto the blocks.
I agree with Lydia. I think visualisation's really good for it. I'd do a few jump squats before I got on the block. I'd make sure like I take some deep breaths and tell myself it's just for fun. It is just for fun.
Fantastic. Fun is always the best way. So were you one of those swimmers that would walk around wearing headphones? And if so, was there 3 songs that you would have and you would personally recommend having in your playlist?
Time of Your Lives by Pitbull as well. That was a really good one. Anything upbeat really is what like you just bounce around to. It gets your heartbeat ready and you're ready to get in the pool.
I was one of those people that I just didn't listen to music. I'm not a massive music fan. I don't really listen to it very often, and a lot of the time it would distract me, so I tended to not listen to music. So I don't really have any top 3 songs because I never really listened to music before a race.
That's fine, absolutely fantastic. I'd just drop in a bit of Fall Out Boy there if it was me. So how do you cope with the nerves on the day? So you're waiting for your race. Even the drive to the pool is a nerve-wracking thing for even a national swimmer. You're going just for that one race. You've waited all day. How do you feel?
My dad would always play The Greatest Showman on the way to Sheffield, and we'd be singing just to make sure I was calm. I wasn't feeling my anxiety. I was just breathing, making sure I remembered that I'd put all the hard work in there to get there. So now it is just fun, and I'm just there to show everyone what I'm capable of doing. So a lot of deep breaths, a lot.
The journey there for me, it wasn't like focused on the competition at all. It was like we was just going on a drive somewhere. We'd either be like watching a movie, or we'd like just be sort of like had the music or the radio on or something like that. There wouldn't really be many. It wouldn't be like talking about the gala or anything like that. You wouldn't know that we was going to a swimming gala. It would just be like just a normal drive, just taking your mind off it.
How did your nationals actually go?
Mine went really well. I went in, I think I was seeded last for the British in 2022. I came out 20th, so I'd improved on my position and I'd PB'd, so I was really happy with that. And then when I'd done the relays in 2023, our team had finalled. We were doing really well. So overall, I think my nationals experiences have been really, really good.
For me, it did also go really, really well. There's 2 of our current swimmers now. They also got to sort of enjoy my experience. They came and supported me on one of the final days. in several finals. I think there was only one race that I didn't final in, and as I mentioned earlier, on my 100 backstroke, I just missed out on the gold medal, giving me silver, and I also gained a silver medal in the 50 backstroke. I was very close to medaling on a couple of my others, and I think I PB'd in every single race. So it was a really, really good competition for me. Probably one of the best competitions I had.
Fantastic. Big up James and Grace for that one. So we're looking now after you've done your race, you're happy with your performance. What do you eat after a competition? What's the best kind of nutritional foods that you would recommend, maybe? Any cheap foods, maybe?
I won't lie, on the drive back on a Sunday, me and my dad would pull into McDonald's and I'd have a burger, or before they discontinued it, a chicken legend. They were always great. I'd be in the car, I was hungry, I just wanted some food to reward myself. So yeah, I'd have had a McDonald's on a Sunday.
I'm not going to lie, I would always have a takeaway. Whether that was a Chinese or a McDonald's, I would always have a takeaway. Reward yourself for doing well, guys.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a fantastic and amazing experience to be part of, and thank you for sharing your stories with us. It's great to hear about your journey and what it takes to actually get to that competitive level. You've gone through the whole swimming pyramid. You've gone from club champs to counties to regionals, through level 1 open meets, all the way up to nationals. It's absolutely fantastic, and I hope that you've inspired some of our listeners to look ahead and maybe one day competing at nationals. So I thought we'd just finish off with a couple of tips and tricks, because a couple of our swimmers left some questions on our questions board. So Poppy asked, do you have any tips for diving or starting a race?
Streamline.
Definitely
and underwater work.
You need to make sure you've got the fast underwater work, but you've got the undulation for it. And like Lydia said, streamline.
So definitely in the shorter races, you've not got as much time or distance to make anything back. So if you're behind from the start, it's going to put you behind already. So definitely getting a nice quick reaction time, streamline and underwater work.
Use the walls, they're there to help you. They're not there to hinder your performance. They are there to assist you in that short course racing.
Fantastic. We've got a question here from Jack. So do you have any tips to improve on butterfly arm movement?
I see this in a lot of swimmers, but making sure that you pull all the way through the water. A lot of us cut our strokes short. You then have to do a lot more strokes down the lengths, and as we all know, butterfly arms make you very tired. So definitely making sure you pull all the way through.
And making sure you keep your elbows high when you're pulling. If you drop your elbows, you drop the water. So high elbows for your fly.
So there you go, Jack. We expect you to be in a 200 butterflies sometime soon. And final one, which was asked a few times, what is your favourite piece of swimming equipment to use?
Fins.
For me, it was also fins. My legs were sort of like my motor. That's where I got all my power from. So being able to use my legs even more was just, I loved it.
It helped propel me along, so I absolutely adore my fins.
Fantastic, and thank you for your time, girls. It's been absolutely fantastic to listen to your stories, and fantastic for us to get through 2 episodes for you. So hopefully we can have a few more episodes for you to come. I want to thank our special guest Amelia for coming onto the show.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Lydia for giving up her time to share her stories with you.
No problem, guys.
So thank you. We are going to end the episode here. You will find our YouTube channel at the Phin Podcast GD, and you might even find it on our Facebook page, Gainsborough Dolphins. Thank you, and see you later.